This is the Technics direct drive automatic turntable system SL-J3. I scored this at work. Yeah, at the place where I work they have a huge dump bin and sometimes some very interesting stuff lands inside of it. As well as this unit. Now, of course you can tell it's a turntable, and the interesting thing about this turntable is that the needle is not in the bottom. If we take a look inside, there is nothing in here. Only if we move the camera up a bit and have a look inside the lid, there is a needle and a sensor, a small optical sensor. Now, the way this system actually works is we have the needle that drops down onto the record you have in there, and the sensor detects if it's on the platter or not. But also, this thing features something very quite novel. Now, well, since you can see all these various stripes inside here, this is supposed to represent the amount of tracks that could be on a record. And we can have another look at something, and then you will see what these stripes actually stand for. This is the front of the unit, as you can probably tell. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, repeat, and the queuing, that's to lift the needle up and to lower it down on the record. So this here are all our tracks on here. I mean, sure, some records have more, some have less, but with that sensor in there, it's also able to detect all of those tracks on here. Yeah, this is a very dirty record. I really have to clean this quite soon. But yeah, and you can also fast forward and rewind a bit. It won't actually fast forward, it will just lift the needle up, move a bit forward, and then set it back down and play and start and stop and clear whatever settings you have adjusted. And it's because you can actually do a little bit of programming stuff in here to skip certain tracks and add an additional program. Now, the reason why I presume this thing was inside the dump is, well, we have some scratches here on the top, so this has not been treated very well, but judging by the total amount of use, I wouldn't say that this thing has been used an awful lot. It still looks everything very nice, even though you have those ugly scratches in there. And the needle itself, which is back there, also looks quite good. Let's have a closer look at it. There we are. The needle still works just fine, and there are no issues whatsoever doing playback. It doesn't sound wrong or anything, so that needle is still just fine. But there's another issue. See this? We have a crack in the plastic. And what presumably has happened here, and maybe right on this, because if we take a look at the lid, we can also see some damage in the top clear plastic panel, is that somebody has banged this thing into something or dropped it maybe even, and that's why we have that crack in the plastic. Now, fixing that is going to be quite easy. I'm just gonna use my hot glue gun and a piece of PLA. That's the raft, and the raft is very strong, so I'm just going to glue that on there, the ridged side, facing towards the crack, and it shouldn't collide with anything in there, because that's not the best spot in there actually where that crack could have happened. And we're also missing something that should go here, like a plastic pin. Now, yeah, you could just pretty much stick anything in there and that should be alright. But yeah. And also, since, well, this is from the place where I work, we have a sticker on here which shows when the next checkup is, to see if this device is actually still safe to use or not. And what else do we have in the back? Well, we have our power cord, which is a figure of 8 lead, or left and right audio jacks, and this thing. You would think that this is an antenna for a tuner or something. No, it's not. This is the connection to ground. Since, yeah, this thing is not grounded, you can use this to ground the unit. That is probably the stupidest way to do it, but hey, a lot of companies did this back then. Yeah, it's not necessary to do it, but yeah, what could happen if most of your equipment is not connected to ground, you could have some awful hums, and those will disappear when you connect everything to ground. And we also have this synchro rec jack, which I have no idea what it actually does. And for those interested in the specs, yeah, there we are. 220 volts, 50 hertz, 13 watts. And yeah, it seems to be made by Matsushita Electric Industrial Co. Limited and made in Japan. That is always nice to see. Now the biggest question is probably, oh, Discover, does this thing actually work? Well, let's just take a record because I don't want to smash the needle on the rubber. Place that in there. Switch the unit on. You can see a small LED here and a LED in the back there. And we press play or start. I'm gonna get a close-up of this section so you can see the interesting thing moving. Quite difficult to actually get something to show up really on this, because yeah, this plastic is super reflective, so not sure what to do there. Well, this sort of works. Let's press start. And as you can see, that works just fine. I would love to play back some audio, but the problem is that this record in here is not copyright free. And yeah, but I can assure you that this thing is working just fine. And yeah, you can also go to all the tracks you want to. But you have to press stop before actually going to the next track if you want to select it. Like track 1, 2, 8. Let's just skip all the way to track number 4, which is the highest track on this record. Let's see if it actually finds it. It doesn't find it, so this is probably not the best record to demonstrate this. Some work better, some work worse, but yeah. Let's just do it manually and drop it. There we are. So well, that definitely works, which is very nice. So yeah, quite a good score. Now I just have to clean it up a little bit. Try to, if I can, do something against those ugly scratches in here, and fix that broken plastic in there. Now, since I know a lot of people are curious on how this thing actually works, or what's inside of this, and what makes it function like it does, well, this is it. I've taken the top panel off. That's very easy to do. And this is what it's inside. Not a whole lot, actually. Expected a lot more on the side of electronics, which are here. So, well, we have our motor here. This drives this cog, and that is what moves the player head. This thing is always under tension, and when that moves, it always moves the mechanics itself, even if it gets pushed forwards by the platter. And that is how the unit itself actually knows with this optical sensor here where the playhead is. And yeah, of course there's an end stop here, that's always necessary, and there's probably going to be an end stop on the other side as well. So yeah, and if I now start to search for some stuff, we'll see it moving. Well, let's say when I play something back and I press the button to actually lower the player head. There we are. There's a small solenoid here in the back that's releases tension, and that then drops the mechanism, which is slowed down a bit. And if I want to lift it back up, solenoid pulls it all back up, and it rests in that position without power as well. And now if we go over to the motor side, where the more interesting electronics maybe are. Let's rotate this a bit. As you can probably already tell, the belt here is not very on attention. This really needs a new belt, but I can't find mine that I have, and I'm also quite sure that this belt is too small for what I have. So yeah, it could be that this thing is slipping sometimes, but well, it still works. But yeah, I just need to remind myself that this thing needs a new belt. Again, if I start searching or let this thing find its own track, you can see all the cogs move. And yes, I have added some new oil to this. Some oil that can be used with that plastic, so there's no need to worry. That works just fine. And if I lower the head again, there we are, you will see this thing move. And that is how it knows where it still is, even when the whole unit is actually playing. So yeah, it's pretty much that simple. But hey, it was probably pretty advanced for the time when it came out, and well, judging from this, it looks like 1980s technology, because well, we only have through-hole components on here. We have nothing SMD, so yeah, definitely 80s. But hey, it works still just fine. So everything in here still looks quite good. Some of the oil was not the best, but I added new oil to everything, removed the oil that wasn't very good anymore, and that seems to work just fine. All I need to do now is get that crack in the lid fixed. This is what I've added on the inside of the unit, and yeah, the crack on the outside, it's still sort of visible. But this should hold it nicely and strong together. Since the PLA inside there is quite strong, and yeah, it's not a pretty fix, but hey, it's gonna do it. It's just gonna do it quite nicely actually. So yeah, time to put it back together. Alright, we are finished. I have put everything back together. Nothing collides with any of the moving parts, which is always good. And for that missing plastic pin, I've pretty much just inserted a small screw in there that is now tight in the rubber that should hold it together. And yeah, that works. Couldn't be any more difficult than that. So, well, yeah, this is a complete success again. And I'm really happy that it was so easy to get this thing back up and running. Now, in the future I'm gonna buy the new belt, swap that out, and everything will continue working for quite some time. So, yeah, thank you for watching and goodbye. And if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more stuff like this, please subscribe.